Hello and welcome to Your Experience Guide. I'm Scott, and in this video I will be talking about Blackpool Pleasure Beach in 2023. It truly has been a roller coaster of a season. There's been some really good, really high points and been some really low points as a season pass holder. So I'm going to talk about that in today's video, and hopefully this video won't go on forever, but there is a lot to talk about, so I'm going to get straight to it. And I'm going to start with the season launch, which was held a couple of days before the Blackpool Pleasure Beach season started for 2023, and it was actually a really good season launch.
Good afternoon, good afternoon! My name's David, this is Scott, and we are your hosts and compares for your Blackpool Pleasure Beach launch 2023!
The season launch is something that I think Blackpool Pleasure Beach do really well, and this year it was a little bit different because it actually took place before Blackpool Pleasure Beach opened, whereas in years gone by it was usually a couple of weeks after the first few weeks of the season. So it was actually good that it took place before the park opened, and I think it did a really good job of building up the excitement for the new season at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. This year at the season launch there was a wide range of people there. There was invited press, media and vloggers, which we fell into that category. Season pass holders were invited as well. I believe people who had signed up to Pleasure Beach's new version of Club Pleasure Beach, which they're calling a fan club, were also invited along. So there was a good mix of hardcore Blackpool Pleasure Beach fans and also press from the local areas, Lancashire, just Blackpool in general, who are just interested. Also, I think hoteliers from Blackpool are also invited, so they can tell people who are staying in their hotels what people can expect from Blackpool Pleasure Beach in 2023. It was a very good season launch. They put on a great show, including a show, funnily enough, but that's something Pleasure Beach do well. They do stage shows really well. It was hosted in the Globe, which used to have shows like Eclipse and Forbidden, so they used that space really well. And then once they'd done the opening with a show and a bit of comedy and stuff like that, then Blackpool Pleasure Beach's Director of Sales, Marketing and PR basically read through the plans for the season, their marketing plans, the strategies, and just giving people a general idea of what to expect from Blackpool Pleasure Beach. The news everybody was waiting for, though, was the Valhalla news, because in the season launch the year before, obviously Blackpool Pleasure Beach had said, we don't know when it's going to open, but it is opening this year. As we all know, Valhalla didn't open in 2022. So it was hotly anticipated that in 2023, at the season launch, the Valhalla opening day would be announced. That didn't quite happen, but they did announce that it would be opening around April for tech rehearsals, which, to be fair, it did do.
Good afternoon, everyone, but I just have to tell you, I've just come from the engineering department, and they tell me that Valhalla will be having technical rehearsals. So that means you can go for a sneaky peek ride on it, I guess, from mid-April, maybe early April. So just keep looking at the Pleasure Beach website and we'll announce when in April it will be open for you to enjoy a technical rehearsal.
As soon as he said Valhalla was definitely going to be opening, everyone was excited. And then when he invited everyone to go inside the park and have a wander around the North Park area, it was great to just stand there, watch Valhalla testing, hear the soundtrack, see the smoke, and just be like, right, next month we're going on Valhalla, because the season launch was in March, Valhalla was opening in April, and all of a sudden everyone was like, wow, we're actually going to get to go on Valhalla this year. So there was a lot of excitement, and it really did build up the start of the season for Pleasure Beach. I think all of a sudden from that moment on, anyone that was a little bit like, well, I'm not too bothered about when Pleasure Beach is opening and I'll go when I'm going to go and all that, all of a sudden everyone was like, yes, I've got to go to Blackpool. So they really did do an amazing job with the season launch, that's for sure.
Here we go then. First look at these new boats.
So a few days after the season launch, what was a very good season launch, Blackpool Pleasure Beach opened its doors for the 2023 season. And to start the season, they were open for weekends only up until Easter. And this is where the first low of the season came for a lot of people, because from a few days earlier of everyone just being on cloud nine and on a high from the Valhalla news, the season launch, and everybody feeling part of the Blackpool Pleasure Beach 2023 season, came the news that Blackpool Pleasure Beach were apparently going to ban vloggers, which some people got in with their vlogging cameras. We did. Other people didn't get in with any cameras. They had cameras confiscated, told they couldn't take them in, told they had to leave them in a locker, or basically vlogging was not allowed in the park. So there was a lot of mixed messages about that, and of course it gets on Twitter. It gets straight on Twitter, and all of a sudden everyone's a little bit upset. So it was frustrating because a few days before you'd got the park working really well with all the vloggers that they'd invited to the season launch, only for a few days later everyone to be told, actually, we don't want you vlogging here. So it was cleared up a few days later on social media, but it brought the good feeling about Blackpool Pleasure Beach down straight away. And I think, well, I hope it doesn't happen at the start of the 2024 season as well, because it did put a damper on the weekend for some people, because literally some people could not take a camera in at all, which I just think is a little bit daft, because anyone taking a camera into Blackpool Pleasure Beach who is using it responsibly, taking photos off the rides, taking photos of their friends and just showing how much fun they're having, is good free publicity for any theme park that they do that in. Moving away from that side of it though, I thought opening day at Pleasure Beach was actually really good. Ride availability was better than previous years on opening day, the weather was good, and it was just a good feel around the park. It was good to see some changes. The big one had been retracked, Valhalla was testing for everyone to see. People could see the work that was going on with Big Dipper, so it was a good start to the season, other than the camera ban thing. So yeah, again, roller coaster of emotions. People were having a good time, people were frustrated, people were excited about Valhalla, but they were also fed up with the whole camera situation. So already, a couple of days into the season, that roller coaster of emotions, highs and lows, was already setting in. All in all though, I actually really enjoyed opening day, and I think Pleasure Beach made the right decision by opening later in the year. It gave them more chance to get the rides ready, and ride availability was so much better on opening day than it had been in the years before it. Okay, let's talk Valhalla. So Valhalla opened just a little bit after Easter weekend. I believe it was the Tuesday after Easter weekend it opened for tech rehearsals. I believe it was the 12th of April. So I just got back from Park Asterix the day before, and I was like, do you know what? I'm going to go to Blackpool. I'm going to give Valhalla a go. And the thing with tech rehearsals is there was no guarantee that it would open. There was no guarantee of anything working. There was no guarantee of how many boats it'd be on, and all this, that and the other. But I think it was an interesting day, because I remember hearing that Valhalla would open at 12 o'clock. It eventually opened, I think it was at 2 o'clock. Obviously the excitement around Pleasure Beach was massive when Valhalla opened, but then we all forgot that it was tech rehearsals. And then when we went on it and nothing worked, everyone was frustrated. But I think the part of the problem was that for some people who went on it, literally nothing worked. And I was one of those people. I think I'd queued an hour, 2 hours for Valhalla by the time it had finished breaking down. And it was an interesting ride in the darkness, because I got soaked, but there wasn't really anything working after the first lift hill. But I was frustrated at the time. But once I'd got home and sort of thought about it a little bit, I was like, do you know what? I'm going to go back on Saturday, give it another chance, go back with a couple of people and see what it's like. And in that 4 days of difference, it was notably better on the Saturday. So it was like, right, okay, I've actually seen effects working. But by that point, I still don't think I'd seen any of the fire working. So I was a little bit like, have they got rid of it, or is it just not working? But still, that was a case of, it is tech rehearsals, cut it some slack, and we'll see what it's like when it fully opens. After having the 2 goes during the tech rehearsals, I didn't actually go on it again for a couple of weeks, and the next time I went on it was actually for the media day, which was in the early May time. In that time between me going on it again after the first 2 goes on it, I'd seen so much on Twitter about how Valhalla was basically the best ride it had ever been. More fire than ever, all the effects working, everything was better, people weren't getting soaked. And I was reading all sorts of different stuff on Twitter about it being the best thing ever. So I was pretty excited for it on media day. And on the media day, it was brilliant. We saw fire, we saw all the effects, the audio was decent, it was louder than it had been during the tech rehearsals, but it still didn't quite feel like the perfect Valhalla experience. Me and Mike had 2 goes on it, and we had 2 different goes on it. One time things worked, the next time other things worked that hadn't worked the first time, but then the things that had worked hadn't worked. And yeah, it's just Valhalla, isn't it? It's still got technical issues, it's still too wet, and I could go on about it for ages, but me and Mike are going to do a dedicated video about Valhalla in a couple of days' time. I don't know if it'll be going on after this video or next week, but there is going to be a full Valhalla debate video coming up about whether Blackpool Pleasure Beach should have just got rid of it, or were they right to reimagine it, and all stuff like that. But that video is coming either next week or as soon as this weekend, but we are definitely doing that video soon. Moving on to season highlights of Blackpool Pleasure Beach for 2023, there's only one place for me to start really, and that is definitely our Coaster Enthusiast event days at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. We actually had 2 days with ERTs, but we also had a meet-up in May, which was really good because we had a lot of ride takeovers, a lot of laughs, and we also had an after party outside of Blackpool Pleasure Beach at West Coast near Blackpool Tower, which do great burgers, by the way. But yeah, that was a really good day. But then in September, we had an event with 2 exclusive ride time sessions. One of those was on Icon. The other one was on Grand National. It was originally planned to be Big Dipper, but it had cable issues on the lift hill, so that had to be put aside for another day. As well as the September event, we also had an event on the final Saturday of the season, which meant we finally got the Big Dipper ERT at the 3rd time of trying, because we tried to have a Big Dipper ERT last year as well, but that didn't happen. And then, of course, we didn't have the one in September. So we had the Big Dipper ERT, and it looked like everyone was having a good time. That was combined with a Nickelodeon Streak ERT being exclusive ride time. And then we finished the day with an exclusive ride time session on Icon, which was originally meant for the big one, but the big one is having some retracking work done and had to be closed early. But I think Icon was a well-received substitute for the big one. So 2 really, really good events, and can't really thank Blackpool Pleasure Beach enough for how good those days were, especially to Andy Highgate, who was organising them on the day. He did an incredible job. But also, it's worth remembering that before this year, we were Pleasure Beach Experience, we were Club Pleasure Beach. We used to do these events with Blackpool Pleasure Beach all the time back in the day, and now Blackpool Pleasure Beach have got their own version of Club Pleasure Beach. They could have quite easily said, no, we're not doing events with you. But when we rebranded and when we spoke to Blackpool Pleasure Beach that we didn't want to be Club Pleasure Beach anymore, we were going to rebrand. We made it clear that we still wanted to work with Blackpool Pleasure Beach. We still wanted to do events. We still wanted to do these ERT sessions. And it's great that we've been able to do 2 of them this year. So again, a big thank you to Blackpool Pleasure Beach for letting those happen and for giving everyone a great time on those days. Another season highlight for me this year is definitely Big Dipper and the 100th year anniversary. Blackpool Pleasure Beach have gone all out to celebrate this anniversary. They've given Big Dipper a massive repaint. Okay, they didn't repaint the whole ride, but they did a large amount of that ride. They repainted pretty much everywhere that you can see it, other than the bits near the Big Blue Hotel. They've retracked it, refurbed it, got it on the TV, telling everyone it was 100 years old. There was massive coverage of it nationally, and even I think it went abroad as well, the coverage of it. I think Blackpool Pleasure Beach absolutely nailed it with telling everyone that Big Dipper was in its anniversary season, giving it a glow up and just making it look a lot better than it did the year before. And also it rides better than it was doing last year. So I think they handled the 100th anniversary season absolutely brilliantly for Big Dipper.
And yet people like you still want to come and ride the Big Dipper, and that's because this ride is a true icon. From the neon sign and the onion, and it is an onion, to Airplane Turn 1 and Airplane Turn 2 and its famous head chopper moment, the double lift, and the fact that the brakeman still literally brings the train to a halt as it returns to the station. We at Blackpool Pleasure Beach all love the Big Dipper.
A couple of days after Blackpool Pleasure Beach's Big Dipper 100 party and all of the coverage that had been on the TV, the radio, and all just the coverage of the Big Dipper party, there was the late night riding at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. And it is genuinely one of the best days I've had at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, probably for the last 10, 15 years. The atmosphere in the park was just incredible. I've not seen it that busy for so long, but it really didn't matter because Blackpool Pleasure Beach were on top form. It was the best operational day I've seen at the park for a long time. They just seemed to get everything right that day, and it really was incredible to be there. But it was just the atmosphere. If you could just have that atmosphere at Blackpool Pleasure Beach every time on a late night riding, it would just be the perfect place to be whenever it's like a 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. close. It was probably the perfect Pleasure Beach experience for a long time. On a personal note, one of my favourite moments of the Blackpool Pleasure Beach 2023 season was my little boy going on the flying machines for the first ever time. I've been working on that the whole season and the seasons before it. He's been tall enough to go on it for like the last 3 years, but he's always been a bit cautious about going on it. But this year, he was like, yes, I'm ready to do it. But not only that, he went on the flying machines for the first time, but he also went on the ghost train for the first time as well, which was also a massive thing for him. So really, really proud of him for doing those. Next year, he says he wants to go on the log flume, but he doesn't want to go on it with Mike. So that's fair enough. I'll take him on it on a quiet day and not when we're doing a big boy boat. But yeah, I'm really proud that he did the flying machines and the ghost train. And that's probably the highlights, like the top highlight for me of the season, to see the thrill of Blackpool Pleasure Beach being passed down to the next generation and seeing him absolutely love these rides.
Yeah.
Right, it's on to the low lights of the season now, and I think the most obvious place to start is e-ticket scanning on the rides. It is an absolute nonsense. It just takes far too long. It drains your phone battery, or you have to go to one of the shops or guest services, get a paper ticket, and then you've got to get that out of your wallet every time and be scanning it on every ride every time. It annoys customers, it annoys staff, it slows down operations, it's a massive waste of time. There must be a better way to collect data. Surely, there has to be a better way. I just don't get why it's needed. It's a pay one price park. Once you're in, everyone can do the rides anyway. You don't need a separate wristband. So I just don't get it. It just annoys most people. I don't know anyone that likes the e-ticket scanning, whether it be guests or staff that I've spoken to. Literally nobody likes it. So I don't understand why it's still a thing. The e-ticket scanning is frustrating for me as an adult who is going on the rides mostly with my friends, or occasionally when my son goes to Blackpool Pleasure Beach with me, where I've got to scan two of us through the scanner. But what it must be really annoying for people who say are in a big family or a big group where you've got like two parents or one parent, and you've got children who are of different ages, who some need accompanied on a ride, some don't. Do you give all of them a phone with an e-ticket on? Do you give them all a piece of paper with a ticket on? It just feels so unnecessary. And since the e-ticket scanning has been a thing at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, I've seen so many people with their phones out on rides, which is so dangerous, and I don't get why that hasn't been picked up as a problem. Because obviously you can't take a GoPro on the rides at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, but the amount of times I've been stood watching the rides where you've just, you know, the big one comes out of the station, you've got people doing this or filming it, or it's like, it's not safe. So, but because people are using these to scan onto the rides, it's then in people's hands when they're getting on the rides, and yeah, they're just staying in people's hands. So for me, I think e-ticket scanning, it's got to be binned. The only scenario where I see that e-ticket scanning should stay is if Blackpool Pleasure Beach were to bring back the walk round pass, the entry pass. The next thing to mention is that on the majority of my visits to Blackpool Pleasure Beach this season, the park has been really, really quiet. Now, I've been accused of creating a narrative that Blackpool Pleasure Beach is quiet and nobody's going and I'm making it up. I don't know how many times I've been to Blackpool Pleasure Beach this season off the top of my head. I don't know if it's 10, 15, 20. I genuinely don't know. but I can probably name 3 or 4 times when it's been busy, whereas every other time it has been really, really quiet. If you were only to visit Blackpool Pleasure Beach once a year, then going on a day when it was quiet, I would imagine is amazing, because you can get on the rides as much as you want, and it really just must be good to just be able to just walk on everything all day. But for me, I'd rather see Blackpool Pleasure Beach busy. I'd rather see them making enough money to build new coasters every few years, put new rides in every few years, update the show lineup and refurb what they've got, and just, you know, have a really, really busy park full of excitable thrill seekers. But I genuinely can't remember more than 5 times this season when I've been that it's been busy. Why that is, I don't know. Is it too expensive? Is it because the walk around pass is not there? Is it because people are going abroad? I don't know. But a lot of the times when I've come out of Blackpool Pleasure Beach at the end of the day, at like 5 or 6 o'clock when that's the closing time, I've come out to Blackpool and it's rammed. Blackpool seafront's rammed, Sandcastle sold out, the piers are full of people. So it's like, why are these people not in Pleasure Beach? Why are they going to these other attractions? So there's got to be a reason for it. So moving on to hopes for the 2024 season. The first one is to do with the big one. It's the big one's 30th anniversary season, and I'm hoping it has similar treatment to what Big Dipper got last year. This is the signature attraction in the park, and I hope they go all out to give it a glow up. For that so-called glow up, I would really like to see the silver train design brought back, even if it's just for one season. The silver trains with the stripes, bring back the retro Pepsi Max Big One style trains for the 30th anniversary. Even if it's just on one of the trains, it would be incredible to see that. Also, I really hope that they fix up the station, because it does look tired. I know that we're not allowed to talk about paintwork and stuff, but you can't really miss how bad the Big One station looks when you're in the queue for it. So I really do hope that they give that a glow up as well, because it desperately needs it. Another hope of mine for the 2024 season is that Blackpool Pleasure Beach have a proper Halloween event and not Journey to Hell. I didn't do Journey to Hell this year, and I didn't do it last year either. I think for how much it is, I don't think it's worth doing. I honestly think Pleasure Beach need to look at how Alton Towers and how Thorpe Park do their Halloween events and implement it in a similar way. For me, Blackpool Pleasure Beach have got an incredible infrastructure for a Halloween event. There's so many different places they could put scare zones, use for scare mazes. They could change the lighting, change the audio. I honestly think if Blackpool Pleasure Beach got a consultant in who's done Halloween events before to run it inside normal park hours, and I could honestly make a whole video about what I would do with Blackpool Pleasure Beach Halloween, because I honestly think it could be the best like theme park or amusement park Halloween event in the country. But right now it's something that in the current format as Journey to Hell, it really doesn't interest me, and the reviews from this year were bad. So I just hope that they can improve on that and just change the format of it, because I do genuinely believe it could be an incredible event if it's done right. And the final hope really for 2024 is that when Pleasure Beach do the late night riding events, that they don't close the rides as early. There's less fireworks events and more of the rides being open through to 10 o'clock and not closing at 8:30, so people get the chance to experience Blackpool Pleasure Beach at its best, which is at night. So yeah, that is my Blackpool Pleasure Beach 2023 season review. I must apologise if I'm not speaking clearly or as confidently as I normally do in a video like this. I am still bunged up with an ear infection and sinusitis. It is dreadful, and it's really, well, it's literally doing my head in, but hopefully I can get rid of it soon. So yeah, I do apologise if I sound like I've got a peg on my nose while I've been talking. Let me know in the comments section what your highlights and lowlights of the Blackpool Pleasure Beach 2023 season have been. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the 2024 season. I did, in the end, renew my season pass. I felt it was worth it, just so that I could experience more of those moments with my son on rides that he's not done before and he wants to do for the first time at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. And he's now tall enough to do some more of the coasters, so hopefully I can get him on some of those as well. But yeah, that's all from me today. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It's a little thumbs up below. Please as well, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.